Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1, Cheryl Elston. Today marks the anniversary of the capture of the village of Pozières by Australian troops of the 1st Division. In the early hours of the 23rd of July, 1916, troops of the Australian 1st Division launched an attack which would result in the capture of the fortified French village of Pozières on the Somme. Under cover of a carefully fired artillery barrage, Australian infantry entered the village and after hours of bitter fighting were able to eject the Germans, who had held the village since the earliest months of the war. One man described how the instant our guns lifted, the German batteries and machine guns, which had been waiting, opened fire on us, and a torrent of high-explosive shrapnel and bullets were let loose. Men fell in all directions, but nothing could stop the boys now. Their blood was up. Into the trench they dashed, and bayoneted and shot like fury. The capture of Pozières was the beginning of a 6-week campaign that saw three Australian divisions rotate in and out of the line, conducting attack after attack in an attempt to advance along Pozières Ridge. They would not see the same successes they had on the first day again. Nevertheless, they slowly advanced towards the fortified stronghold of Mouquet Farm under some of the heaviest artillery fire of the war. By the time the Australians were relieved from the battlefield on the 3rd of September 1916, they had advanced a little over a mile from Pozières at a cost of 24,000 casualties, 6,731 of which were dead. A memorial at the windmill on Pozières reminds us that Australian troops fell more thickly on this ridge than on any other battlefield of the war. This evening, we warmly welcome the family of Major Frank William Lindeman, whose story will be told shortly. We also warmly welcome Mr. John King, President of the Return and Services League of Australia, ACT branch. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Catapult party, attention! Catapult party, present arms.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Catapult party, shoulder arms. Catapult party, order arms.
Thank you. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozieres, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Major Frank William Lindeman. Frank Lindeman was born on 31st of December 1891, the son of George and Mary Lindeman of Sydney. His father was a long-serving member of the Royal Navy who in company came to Sydney on his retirement. George Lindeman worked as Secretary of the Marine Board in Sydney before Frank's birth, and from 1900 was the government shipping master. George died unexpectedly in 1911 while he was arranging his retirement. Frank was educated at the Sydney Grammar School, during which time he was also a member of the Parramatta Naval Cadets. Frank continued to serve with the Citizens Militia until his work with Dalgety and Company led to a transfer to Hughenden in Queensland. In March 1915, Frank married Hilda Agnes Willis, and days later he enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force. He attended an officers' training course in Australia and was qualified for a commission. This was granted in mid-1915. He left Australia in June 1915 with the rank of Captain Adjutant with the 19th Battalion. Frank never met his son, also Frank Lindeman, who was born the following December. Captain Lindeman arrived on the Gallipoli Peninsula in August 1915. His battalion participated in the attack on Hill 60, the last action of the August offensive, and remained on the peninsula for the rest of the campaign. Lindeman returned to Egypt with his battalion, arriving in early January 1916, and was sent to France in March 1916, becoming one of the first Australian officers to reach the Western Front. 2 months later, he was transferred to the 1st Battalion and promoted to Major. The 1st Battalion's first major operation was on the Western Front, was the capture of the French village of Pozières on the 23rd of July 1916. In the early hours of the morning, the 1st Australian Division attacked and captured the southern edge of Pozières, advancing further over the course of the day. That evening, Major Lindeman was with the transport officer of the 1st Battalion, Lieutenant Yeomans, and his batman, Private Gannon. They had negotiated their way out of the frontline trench system and were walking along a road towards the dressing station when a shell came over. Gannon recalled, "It burst practically against Mr. Yeomans. I was blown some distance away in a dazed condition. As my senses cleared, I heard Major Lindeman groaning and calling for me. Gannon tried to get to him, but fell unconscious. When he awoke at the dressing station, he asked for Lindeman, but the Major's condition was so serious he'd been sent further on for treatment. Major Frank Lindeman had suffered serious wounds down his left side and had large pieces of shell in his thigh. He died shortly afterwards and was buried at Baycourt Military Cemetery at Baycourt del Baycourt. He was 24 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour of my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photo is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Major Frank William Lindeman, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
Catapult party, shoulder, arms.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Catapult party, present, arms.
lest we forget.
lest we forget.
Catapult party, new words. Turn. Catapult party, quick, march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. And we wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.